How's it going, everybody? Welcome to OP Entertainment. I'm Omar Darwish.
And I'm Pratik Cherian.
And this is our review of Barbie. We're going to go spoiler-free. Before we get into anything, though, we are both very, very aware of a huge strike going on right now between the studios, SAG-Aftra, and the WGA. And we're definitely on the side of the WGA, definitely on the side of SAG-Aftra, and we don't want this to ever be seen as like promotion for the studios. It's hard for us to say, go see this movie, even if we love the movie. Just support your writers, support your actors, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, just to piggyback off of that, we don't get paid for this. This is something we do because we enjoy doing it.
Yes.
So we're going to continue to review films. We don't get paid to do that either. And we recognize, and I think we do a good job of this through our reviews, recognizing the important contributions that all of the actors and the writers,
just the creative in general,
the creative teams in general make to every movie that we love. And so with that said, I don't know how you can talk about this movie specifically without talking about the writing in this movie.
Yes, for
because
sure.
Like it's when you say Barbie movie, I promise you, when someone says Barbie movie, you're not going to imagine the movie that this actually is.
You might imagine the first like 10 minutes.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
So you loved it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. Borderline, I loved it. I got to see it again, but I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
If that's all you needed, go see. Oh, damn it. Don't see this movie. Wait till streaming.
No, we're not boycotting it, but we're not promoting.
I can't even say wait till streaming. Like support the streaming services. Like,
No,
what am I doing here?
No, but I mean, okay, look, I would say that even that first act, while it's almost a glorified toy commercial, but it's written so well, and they make I guess we'll just say the theme of this movie is
the theme. You're brave enough to say there's one theme.
Well, okay, I was going to say the overall. I would say the overall like theme of this movie is feminism : what it means to be a woman in society. Is that fair?
I don't know. I feel like I need my lawyer to answer the question. I will say this. I think this movie had multiple points it was trying to make. I think I think it landed on all of them. I think most of them are heavy-handed, some more than others, but they all landed, and I felt like they all had a purpose of being there, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, absolutely
So
makes
for
sense.
me, because you're right, you watch this movie in like 10 minutes, and you're like, okay, I clearly see what the message of this movie is supposed to be. But there's so much more. There's so much more to this movie than
if I can give a quick timeout.
Sure.
The idea of exploring feminism through the lens of Barbie in a movie funded by the company that profits off of Barbie, while also not holding back the possible negative influences that has had. Like, what?
Yeah, this movie does a lot, and I said this after we got done watching it. But I was like, man, we're gonna have to like really. I don't even know where to begin and end about this review because there's so much in this movie. It's packed. This movie is packed with so much.
And again, sorry,
you're good. You're good. Go on.
I was gonna say, and I fully recognize the fact that we're two dudes in a room talking about a movie that's like.
I was getting ready to say, we're not the demographic, they're not the target audience.
I don't even need the demographic. Like, yes, I don't know who the demographic of this movie is.
I was thinking that midway through the movie. I was like, this should be really fun. Like as a kid, you know what? Okay, this is something I thought after watching the movie. I'm curious if you think the same thing. I felt like to me, these are the kind of movies that, like don't get made anymore, or I guess have never been made. But the kind of movies that like you'll watch as a kid and enjoy it, and then watch it as an adult and realize, oh my god, there was way more in that than I expected. But like I feel like this could work. This movie works almost on like every level.
I was trying to think of like. Because to a certain extent, there's so much that would go over a kid's head, but
a lot.
But like the bones of a very generic kids movie are in here, where it's just like,
which is why you'd be mistaken in thinking like it's tonally a mess and tonally all over the place, because that's kind of how I felt, and then like it just kind of all clicked for me. I'm like, it's not tonally all over the place. It's just tonally different than anything else I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and it's not. It's like a mosh podge of things, but like. Of new things. Like, I don't know. I really liked it.
I feel like every time the movie was on the verge of losing me, there'd be some joke that would just be so well written and so clever that I would be right back in.
I felt like the humor, I won't say the humor landed all the time, but a lot of the humor landed for me. A lot of the humor did feel like it was targeted at kids almost.
Most of the humor landed most of the time. How about that?
Yeah, which is all you can ask, honestly. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll say this though. If the humor didn't, or it's a question for you, if the humor didn't land like at all, do you think this movie still works?
I think it does because
It's just a different movie, right?
it's a different movie, but I think it still works to your point because of how much the movie is trying to say, and I think those messages would still come across and still need to be heard, even if the humor wasn't quite there.
Okay. I almost don't want to like get into other details about this movie or what I didn't like, because I feel like what I didn't like is kind of okay.
Let's talk about this. So we know from the trailers, and if you're someone that's avoided trailers, maybe this is probably the point where you turn this off. But we know from the trailers, minor spoilers here. But we know from the trailers that Barbie goes into the real world, and she encounters Will Ferrell and his like CEO corporate board, right?
His
corporate board of Mattel. Yeah. We'll say that. Okay. And I think that it's those scenes specifically to me that stand out as not fitting in, specifically because I think the tone, a lot of there's a lot in this movie that kind of contrasts the Barbie world from the real world.
Sure.
And I think in the scenes that board is in, you don't feel the contrast as much because they don't feel like real people.
Do you think it's just the boards? I mean, most of the real world scenes are board scenes, but do you feel like, I felt like it was every scene in the real world, they didn't do enough to differentiate the real world from Barbie Land to me. And I felt like that could have been a bigger contrast. Like
I almost think, I think in a way...
is it supposed to be just because it's visually a representation of, like, it's visually so different? Because tonally and just like the way that, okay, this is timely. The Wonka trailer just dropped, and we kind of both had this issue with the Wonka trailer, is that Wonka is supposed to be so unique to everybody else, but it felt like everybody was kind of as Wonka, right? And that's a little jarring for me. This isn't as bad, but it does feel like there's not as big of a, like you were saying, like it just doesn't feel like there's a big of a contrast between Barbie world and real world.
I think that there's like some of those initial scenes you really feel the contrast, and I think it's once we start getting like the important characters in the real, without going into too much detail, like when you get to the important characters, there's not enough distinction, and I kind of get it because I don't know if this movie had time to like fully flesh out these
Would it be
characters.
a spoiler to mention us?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't mention exactly what it is, but I felt like it was on that aspect was underbaked. The characters not necessarily, and one of those characters had more to do than the other. I guess this will make sense once you see the movie, I guess. But I
said that there was like the bones of a kids movie in there, like those characters that you're talking about specifically are where I really felt that this is a kids movie aspect to it.
I found myself going, wait, why are you making this conclusion up all of a sudden? Like, it just nothing's changed in the movie narratively, but like we just have to get from point A to point B, and okay, sure.
Yeah.
But like, honestly though, nothing huge. I don't really have any bigger gripes with the movie. That was my big gripe. Maybe this one gripe I was thinking about on the way home.
Second gripe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I felt like, okay, for Margot Robbie to be the lead in this, I didn't feel like she had as many lines as Ken or any of the Kens or half of the other Barbies. She just really didn't have enough to do in this movie. Like, she's kind of just there along for the ride for a lot of this movie.
Yeah, but I kind of think that...
Was that the point?
That was kind of the point. When you think about the arc that her character goes through,
sure,
that is. I think that's a lot of
it. It didn't really bother me that much, but once we get to the end of the movie, I found myself thinking like, like I feel like I didn't get enough Margot Robbie in this. Like, I was promised a Margot Robbie Barbie movie. Damn it! I feel like
Margot Robbie's on scene a lot. She has a lot of screen time.
I got a Ken movie way more than I got a Barbie movie for a lot of it.
Yeah. Agree to disagree, and I don't know that I can do that without spoiling.
Okay,
but yeah.
I would be very curious to actually read the script and see how many lines Ryan Gosling got versus Margot Robbie, because it really felt like there was a huge discrepancy there. But that's just me, I guess, because it didn't feel like anybody else. We saw it with an audience that freaking was there for this movie. Everybody was so hyped for this movie. They were clapping at the Nicole Kidman ad again. So that being said, like, I think we saw this in like the perfect environment to see this movie. I really enjoyed it. There's some pacing issues.
Like I said, I feel like every time the movie lost me, though, it brought me back in so quickly.
I feel the second act kind of bleeds into the third act, and I couldn't even tell you exactly when the third act begins, because it's kind of...
I kind of thought that the writing felt so sharp and so focused, kind of up until the point where they get to the real world, and after that, it kind of like starts meandering a little bit. Like I
Sure.
kind of felt that up and down a bit.
In
But I
parts.
think that it's because of how good the writing was before that.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought.
What do we think box office is going to do? I feel like
Does
this
it
is gonna
matter?
destroy
Does it
the
matter?
box
I'll
office.
say this. I think that while this isn't my best movie of the year, I think this is the most fun I've had at a movie all year.
I'll say like the highs of this movie may be higher than any of. Well, I mean, I can't even say. There's so many good movies. This is a great year in cinema. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was looking at my top 5, and I was like, wow, like just wow.
All right, you want to score this?
Yeah, I know you're gonna give it a 10.
No, I'm not. I'll go first. I'm giving it a 9. I really thought about. There were many points while we were watching it where I'm like, this is a 10. This is absolutely a 10. And in the end, I think some of those tonal shifts were a little too much for me, and the unevenness of the last act contributed to that. So it's a 9. But I will say, hot take, I think this is one of those movies where, like, when historians are trying to show the infiltration of IP into storytelling and the way that great writers and great directors are able to work around that, I think this will be like the pillar, like shining example
I was
of
gonna
that.
say, can you think of another example? I really can't think of one off the top of my head. Like
Not
this.
I feel like
artsy of
I
an
feel like
IP
I feel
movie
like
in general.
comparing any I feel like comparing it to this, like, yeah, that's a different discussion for a different day. But
It's like you go into this. I go into this movie and I'm thinking to myself, like, how are they gonna? We know that it's a big IP. And we know they're gonna try to do some sort of art house stuff with this, and they just did it like perfectly. Like
it's amazing. Yeah,
I borderline love this movie. I got to see it again. I'm gonna go. I wish we did halves, damn it, because I'm damn near about to agree with you.
Pick a stance.
I'm gonna stick with 8 for now, but it could really be a 9 after a second watch. I love Margot Robbie in this. I loved Ryan Gosling in this. The star of this movie is Greta Gerwig. The directing of this movie is incredible. The writing, I think the directing is even better than the writing. Which I think it's both her, right?
Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Is that how you say
I think that sounds right. I think that sounds
yeah.
right. I really enjoyed this movie though. There's some slight pacing issues. My gripes with this movie are not enough for me to like this could have been a 10. Like if I watch this again, if I watch this again and like my gripes are even smaller, this could go up a lot.
Very easily see a world where in like 3 years I'm watching it again and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't give this a 10. Like, yeah.
Also, we didn't really touch on this because I think everybody else says, but the visuals are awesome. I thought this was visually really well done. The background
visually really well done. I thought that there were points in the beginning that almost felt like old school Hollywood in a way.
A lot of it, yeah.
Like a lot of the like music numbers. Like I'm just like,
and
this
you know me, I don't like music numbers.
Yeah, but I'm like, this feels like it's straight out of the 50s.
But it never goes on for too long though. I felt like it was perfect. It fit what it was trying to do.
Yeah, no, it's great. All right, you want to take us out?
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow for Oppenheimer. Hopefully, we both love it just as much. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
See you guys.